where the brain has been removed, and you can see the connective tissue, the dura mater, which is located right here. The dura mater surrounds the entire brain, and then it folds down onto itself. And inside of the bottom of this folded piece of connective tissue, you have the inferior sagittal sinus buried deep inside there. Inferior sagittal sinus. Then you have what is called the straight sinus. Right here, straight sinus goes directly back to the what is called the confluence of the sinuses. The confluence of sinuses is where the superior sagittal sinus is right here. Superior sagittal sinus, SSS, drains the cerebral cortex. So all the cerebral vessels are coming from the surface of the brain and collecting medially. All the peripheral veins will dump into the superior sagittal sinus, and the blood will then carry posteriorly to the through the where the tentorium comes together with the falx cerebri. You have what is called the straight vein of Galen. Okay, and that goes to the what is called the confluence of the sinuses. In the confluence of the sinuses, the blood vessels that drain the right side of the brain is going to travel to the right side of where the transverse sinus is located. Okay. And then the transverse sinus will drain into the sigmoid sinus. The sigmoid sinus will drain into the internal jugular vein. And it carries the deoxygenated blood. It will carry the blood to the inferior vena cava, to the right atrium. Okay, so this is the falx cerebri, separates the right and left hemispheres of the brain. This is the tentorium cerebelli, separates the cerebellum, which would sit here, cerebellum, from the posterior lobe of the brain, which is called the occipital lobe. If you look at this view, you can see how the blood travels through the transverse sinus and then the sigmoid sinus and then into the inferior vena cava. And this diagram shows you the major cranial nerves, where they are situated, and also the main blood vessels. So this main blood vessel here is called the vertebral artery. Vertebral artery. And the vertebral arteries on either side here, then they fuse to form the basilar artery. The basilar artery then splits into a right and left posterior cerebral artery. So this and this is where the posterior cerebral artery is. And then here on either side of the pituitary gland, you have the posterior communicating arteries, and you also have the optic nerve. The optic nerve is growing into this space here. Okay, let's see. All right, I think that's it for the models.